1. Dallas weather alert. Flash flood warning issued for northern DFW. 2. Kerr County flood warning. 3 hours to act, tragedy unfolded, what went wrong? 3. Texas flooding crisis. July storms and flash flooding in central Texas. 1. Dallas weather alert. Flash flood warning issued for northern DFW. Dallas is bracing for a deluge that could turn neighborhoods into lakes overnight. But here's where it gets controversial. While the National Weather Service warns of flash flooding, many residents are left wondering why the threat feels so sudden, and whether the system is doing enough to prepare for these extremes. Let's break it down. A considerable flash flood warning is currently active for Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Addison, and parts of Plano, lasting until midnight. This isn't your typical summer drizzle. The Dallas-Fort Worth metro has seen a chaotic mix of early morning showers, creating a muggy, oppressive Saturday. But the worst is yet to come. Rain chances are escalating, with the potential for heavy, unrelenting downpours through the weekend. The flood alert. What you need to know. The National Weather Service has issued a flood watch for western North and Central Texas, extending until 7 p.m. Sunday. And this is the part most people miss. Even if the storms aren't classified as severe, the sheer volume of rain in a short time can trigger catastrophic flooding. Think of it like a fire hose aimed at the ground. Water accumulates faster than it can drain. Saturday's chaos. Real-world impacts. Carrollton's Emergency Management Office reported alarming incidents. For water rescues, 2 structure fires, possibly lightning-related, and a train literally pushed off its tracks by floodwaters. Yet, surprisingly, no injuries or major damage have been reported so far. This raises a critical question. How much more could the situation escalate before authorities declare a true emergency? The weekend outlook. Rain, and more rain. Saturday morning will see brief, scattered showers, but these should dissipate by midday. However, the afternoon and evening are a different story. Scattered storms will bring heavier rain, with gusty winds adding to the chaos. And this isn't a one-day event. Rainfall is expected to persist through Monday, keeping residents on edge. Why this matters? A call for vigilance. The data doesn't lie. This storm is a textbook example of how climate patterns are shifting. Historically, Dallas summers are hot and dry, but recent years have shown a troubling trend of sudden, extreme weather. Do you think cities like Dallas are doing enough to adapt? Should infrastructure be redesigned to handle these deluges? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Sources and further reading. This update is based on the National Weather Service and insights from meteorologist Evan Andrews. For real-time tracking, check the latest radar maps and stay tuned to trusted local news outlets like Fox 4 News. 2. Kerr County flood warning. 3 hours to act, tragedy unfolded, what went wrong? The National Weather Service provided Kerr County authorities with ample time to react before the devastating flood struck, but the question remains, did they act on the warnings? The timeline leading up to the disaster reveals a series of alerts that could have saved lives had they been heeded. A 3-hour and 21-minute window existed from the moment the National Weather Service issued the first flash flood warning for parts of Kerr County until the first reports of flooding at low-lying water crossings began pouring in. This warning, the Weather Service asserts, initiated a cascade of automated alerts delivered to cell phones and weather radios, notifying the local population of the impending danger. However, the extent to which local officials received and acted upon these warnings remains shrouded in mystery. County officials have been tight-lipped about their actions during the critical period leading up to the flood. They have neither granted interviews nor discussed their response strategies in public press conferences, focusing instead on search and rescue operations. Governor Greg Abbott, addressing the media on Tuesday, acknowledged the existence of the flash flood warning but emphasized the unpredictability of the event's severity. No one would know that would be a 30-foot-high tsunami of water, he stated. While the National Weather Service claims to have communicated directly with local officials throughout the night, the exact timing of these communications is unclear. Some calls reportedly went unanswered, landing in voicemail boxes. Kerrville's mayor, unaware of the flooding until around 5:30 a.m., was notified by the city manager, over 4 hours after the initial warning was issued. The first warnings on the county's Facebook pages appeared simultaneously with the Guadalupe River's rapid ascent, which had already breached its banks near Hunt and was surging toward Kerrville. Weather experts concur that the National Weather Service's forecasters seem to have executed their duties proficiently as the river's levels rose at an alarming rate, surpassing previous records and wreaking havoc on summer camps, RV parks, homes, and campgrounds. This scenario exemplifies a silent killer that meteorologists caution trainees about, particularly in areas prone to flash flooding, known colloquially as Flash Flood Alley. The deadliest phase of the disaster unfolded under the cover of darkness while residents slept. The Guadalupe River claimed over 90 lives in Kerr County, leaving many more unaccounted for days later. The Weather Service had issued a flood watch on Thursday afternoon, designating a specific threat level indicating that conditions were ripe for a flood. According to Bob Henson, a meteorologist and journalist with Yale Climate Connections, this is the most precise forecast possible at such an early stage. Throughout the night, the agency escalated its warnings, providing sufficient time for most individuals to escape harm if they had received and comprehended the alerts. However, uncertainties linger regarding cell phone coverage along the river, the activation of alerts on phones, and the wakefulness of the affected population. Had they been adequately warned, many could have sought higher ground in the rain-soaked darkness. Reflecting on the situation, climate scientist Daniel Swain posited that had there been a more substantial recognition of the danger predicted by the Weather Service, the magnitude of the loss of life might have been significantly reduced. He expressed this view in a public video call on Monday. The flood watch issued on Thursday afternoon was the first indication of trouble. Emergency personnel across central Texas had ample reason to keep a vigilant eye on the skies prior to the onset of the lethal flooding and the commencement of the July 4th holiday weekend. Federal forecasters had placed a large portion of the state, including Kerr County, under a flood watch at 1:18 p.m. on Thursday. At least 30 children lost their lives in the ensuing disaster, and 19 additional fatalities were confirmed in other counties by late Tuesday due to the widespread floods. A flood watch serves as a signal to local emergency officials and the general public that conditions are conducive to flooding, weather experts explain. Thursday's forecasts did not pinpoint the exact locations or volumes of rainfall, as such predictions are notoriously challenging to make accurately several days in advance. The exact location of rainfall can significantly impact river forecasts. I view flash flood events like this very much akin to tornadoes, observed Alan Gerard, a retired NOAA meteorologist and current CEO of Balanced Weather. We can inform you that the conditions are favorable, but we cannot predict the exact strength of the tornado or whether it will strike your home. Kerr County, nestled within the Texas Hill Country, is characterized by limestone hills lacking deep soil layers, resulting in rivers that can swell rapidly. The region has a history of deadly floods. In anticipation of the storm, the Texas Division of Emergency Management had mobilized rescue teams and elevated its readiness level on Thursday, deploying additional resources. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick revealed that the regional director for TDM personally contacted local officials to discuss the emerging storm. State rescue teams, military vehicles, and aircraft were stationed in the region, primarily in San Antonio, as reported by TDM Chief Nim Kidd during a Friday night press conference. However, the actions taken by Kerr County officials following the issuance of the flood watch on July 3 remain unclear. As the death toll climbed on Friday, Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly declared, "We didn't know this flood was coming." Neither Judge Kelly, the county sheriff, nor the emergency management coordinator have responded to requests for interviews. One contributing factor to the apparent lack of response could be alert fatigue, a phenomenon exacerbated in regions frequently exposed to flood warnings. Repeated exposure to flood watches that do not result in actual flooding can foster complacency among residents, according to Avanthika Gori, an assistant professor of civil and environmental engineering at Rice University and a flood risk expert. This can lead individuals to dismiss new warnings, thinking it's just another false alarm, she explained. Moreover, there may be confusion regarding the distinction between a watch and a warning among the general public, Gori noted. On Thursday night, Kerrville Mayor Joe Herring, age 63 and a native of the city, recalled receiving reports of potential rainfall around the time of the July 4th Kids Bike Parade the following day. A friend had cautioned him about the possibility of heavy rain across a broad area, but Herring remained unconcerned. Upon stepping outside and observing the clouds, he concluded that someone else would bear the brunt of the rain, convinced it would bypass his area. Thunder roused him around midnight, and he welcomed the sight of rain considering the region's severe drought. As the forecast evolved overnight and data flowed in, more specific warnings, indicative of ongoing or imminent flooding, emerged. Additional personnel were on duty at the Weather Service office in New Braunfels, according to Erica CI, a spokesperson for the National Weather Service. At 1:14 a.m., the National Weather Service issued its inaugural flash flood warning for central Kerr County, asserting that data suggested life-threatening flash flooding was either underway or imminent. This message triggered automatic alerts to radios and cell phones, CEI confirmed. At this juncture, the river was barely beginning to rise, remaining within its banks in most areas. The disparity between the warning and the seemingly benign conditions on the ground could have deterred individuals from taking immediate action, observed Eric Nielsen, an instructional assistant professor at Texas A&M University, in an email. This is one of several challenges inherent in issuing effective warnings that are difficult to overcome, he added. Valerie Peters, a guest at the Kerrville RV campsite known as Jellystone Park, recounted waking up to the rainfall at some point during the night, noticing nothing amiss. She acknowledged glancing at the emergency notifications but dismissed them, turning off the sound and returning to sleep. She had eagerly anticipated a weekend filled with painting, karaoke, and cornhole tournaments with her family. Fortunately, her campsite escaped significant damage. "We could have perished," Peters remarked. "We had no inkling of the gravity of this rainstorm." In the early morning hours as the rain continued to pummel the area, officials still had time to take action. At 4:03 a.m., 2 hours and 49 minutes after the initial flood warning, federal forecasters issued a flash flood emergency warning for south-central Kerr County. The National Weather Service reserves the term, flash flood emergency, for exceedingly rare situations where lives are in grave danger. This is a particularly dangerous situation. "Seek higher ground now," the warning exclaimed. The Guadalupe River was surging precipitously. In the nearly 3 hours since the first warning was disseminated, it had risen 14.3 feet, according to the river level gauge near Hunt, upstream from Kerrville. It would ascend another 15.5 feet, according to available data, before the gauge malfunctioned. At 4:35 a.m., 3 hours and 21 minutes after the initial warning, the National Weather Service office began receiving reports of low-level flooding from the Kerr County Sheriff's Office, CEI disclosed. The river continued to rise. Forecasters transmitted a second flash flood emergency alert at 5:34 a.m., now encompassing east-central Kerr County, warning of a massive and lethal flood wave advancing down the Guadalupe River. Once again, they implored residents to evacuate to higher ground immediately, describing the potential damage as catastrophic. Around this time, the Kerr County Sheriff's Office took to Facebook to issue a stark warning: dangerous flooding now. Similarly, Kerr County posted a warning on its Facebook page that the river was overflowing. Kerrville city manager, who had been jogging near the river at 3:30 a.m. and observed no signs of flooding, awakened the mayor around 5:30 a.m. to inform him that the downtown park, the site of numerous July 4th festivities, was submerged. Mayor Herring recounted getting dressed hastily and heading downtown. He received an alert on his phone from the code red system, employed by the county, at 6 a.m., indicating a flash flood alert or a similar notification. Residents can register for this system to receive alerts. Herring mentioned that it was the sole weather alert he received that morning. Both Kerr County and the city of Kerrville are registered with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, granting them authority to disseminate alerts broadly within their jurisdictions without necessitating individual registration. As per a public database, neither the city nor the county sent push alerts to cell phones early in the morning on July 4th, according to online data from PBS. The last-mile weather alert conundrum. Conveying evolving threats as forecasts become clearer is a challenge meteorologists term the last-mile problem, which has long vexed the field. Even as the National Weather Service issues warnings, it may have no insight into who is listening or monitoring the situation on the other side. The big question marks are, who did the National Weather Service manage to reach in person, and who was able to monitor the automated warnings disseminated through cell phones, email blasts, and other channels at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and 4 a.m.? Pondered Henson, the meteorologist affiliated with Yale Climate Connections. This boils down to the county, local, and even individual entities like campgrounds. At National Weather Service weather forecast offices, it falls to the warning coordination meteorologist, in this instance, Paul Ura, who retired from a decades-long career in April, several years earlier than planned, to cultivate relationships with local community members to prepare for such events. The White House came to the defense of the forecasting agency on Monday, responding to queries about whether nationwide staffing cuts had adversely impacted their operations. Two close friends of Mayor Herring, Jane Ragsdale, director of the Heart o' the Hills Camp, and Dick Eastland, one of the owners of Camp Mystic, perished in the flooding, deeply affecting him. He was convinced that both would have checked the weather conditions. I fervently wished there had been a means to warn them, he lamented. 3. Texas flooding crisis. July storms and flash flooding in central Texas. When the skies open up and unleash relentless rain, the consequences can be devastating. And that's exactly what happened across parts of Texas in July. Heavy rainfall and flash flooding wreaked havoc in central Texas, the Hill Country, and the Concho Valley, leaving communities grappling with the aftermath. But here's where it gets even more concerning. Storms are still active, posing ongoing risks of severe rainfall and flash flooding in various regions of the state. Texans are being strongly urged to stay informed by keeping a close eye on local weather updates to ensure their safety. The flooding crisis began on July 2, when widespread water inundation affected large portions of the Concho Valley, Hill Country, and central Texas. Homes, roads, and businesses were submerged, and many families faced significant challenges as they dealt with the destruction. If you or someone you know has been impacted by the floods, there is an important step you can take to help officials assess the situation. Report any damage through the Individual State of Texas Assessment Tool, ISTAT, at https://damage.texas.gov. This tool allows residents to share critical information and photos, which will aid emergency management teams in evaluating the extent of the damage. For those seeking assistance, the Federal Disaster Declaration provides a lifeline. Eligible counties can access vital resources to begin the recovery process. More details about this support, including which areas qualify, are available at https://www.fema.gov/disaster/4879. It's essential to explore these resources if you've been affected, as they could make a significant difference in getting your life back on track. But recovery isn't just about government aid. It also involves community resilience and individual preparedness. To help people navigate this challenging time, several tools and guides have been made available. For instance, if you're planning to travel, check road conditions at drivetexas.org to avoid flooded or damaged routes. Need flood safety tips? Visit texasready.gov or ready.gov/floods for comprehensive advice on staying safe during such emergencies. And if evacuation becomes necessary, dial 211 to locate nearby shelters or visit tdem.texas.gov/shelter for more information. One aspect that often goes overlooked in the chaos of natural disasters is plumbing issues. Floodwaters can wreak havoc on water systems, so finding a licensed plumber quickly might become a priority. A helpful resource is the Texas map that connects you with certified professionals. https://tdem.maps.arcgis.com/app/webappviewer/index. HTML ID =$8F665D7832D184B7B909C9E1360B3B9. Additionally, if you notice roads in need of repair due to flood damage, you can report them directly to the Texas Department of Transportation using this link. https://www.text.gov/inside-text.contact-us/contact-us/report issue subpage/road needs repair HTML. For Spanish-speaking individuals, the ISTAT platform offers bilingual accessibility. Whether you prefer English or Spanish, completing the survey is straightforward, and instructional videos are available to guide you through the process. https://vimeo.com/676899520 embedded =$true$source =video_title_owner =420625356 English, and https://vimeo.com/741996005 embedded =$true$source =video_title_owner =420625356 Spanish. Behind the scenes, numerous organizations and agencies are working tirelessly to support recovery efforts. The One Star Foundation, for example, helps coordinate donation drives, while Texas Community Recovery connects volunteers with opportunities to assist affected communities. The Salvation Army operates a hotline, 830-465-4797, for those interested in volunteering. Meanwhile, the Public Utility Commission of Texas offers storm-related resources at https://www.texas.gov/storm, and the Texas Department of Insurance provides guidance on navigating post-storm claims at https://www.texas.gov/consumer/storm/recovery-tips.html. And this is the part most people miss. Livestock producers aren't left out either. The Texas Animal Health Commission has resources specifically designed to assist farmers and ranchers dealing with the impact of natural disasters on their animals. You can learn more about these programs here. https://www.texas.gov/news/brochures/THC brochure_disaster assistance PDF. As Texas continues to respond to this disaster, Governor Abbott has been actively involved, providing updates and ensuring that state resources are mobilized effectively. From increasing the readiness level of the State Emergency Operations Center to activating additional response teams, every effort is being made to mitigate the crisis. Detailed announcements and progress reports can be found on the governor's official website. So, where do we go from here? Is enough being done to prepare for future flooding events? Should states invest more heavily in infrastructure to prevent such widespread damage? These questions deserve thoughtful consideration, and your voice matters. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Texas is doing enough to address its vulnerability to floods? Or are there steps you'd like to see implemented? Let's start a conversation.